Welcome, friends. It's good to be back here on Friday. I'm really happy to be able to meet with my friends, and I'm excited about the things that we're going to talk about today. But as usual, we're going to first see if there are just some thoughts floating around on your heart that you want to share, or experiences that you've had this past week that are just too important not to share with your friends. So we have that time to do that here. So if anybody has something, and remember, the things that seem so tiny to you can sometimes be so very significant to somebody who's listening. So don't hesitate to share just because you feel like it's small. And remember, we're very comfortable with silence. Silence just means that we're thinking. We're thinking about those experiences and those thoughts that we've had to see if there's something that jumps out right now that we want to share. And if not, that's okay, because it'll come up as we move forward. So just making sure. Okay, and then if you don't have anything to start with, I am going to share what I promised I would share. You know, I'm not on top of things lately. I'm just barely hanging on. So this morning is when I shared with the Marco Polo group, and then on Instagram, what it was I wanted to talk about. So you really didn't have any heads up. But I'm going to go ahead and share with you this post that I found. It was from yesterday, but it was on the Well-Educated Heart in the Facebook group. And it's, well, I won't say who it's from, because I haven't heard back from her yet. But there's a friend of ours who shared this lovely analogy. So I'm going to go through it, and then maybe we can share some of our thoughts about it. So I apologize for the fact that I'm going to be reading a bit. During our women's class in church this past Sunday, the woman that was teaching our lesson was talking about how we can't give from an empty cup. And we've heard that so many times. She did a little demonstration where she first took a long stemmed glass that had water in it, and she poured that water into 3 other glasses. Those glasses now had water, but the original glass was now empty and could give no more. Then she took that original glass and balanced it on top of the other 3 glasses that were together in a triangle. This time she poured water from a pitcher into the top glass until it was overflowing. As it overflowed, the water spilled out and filled up the other glasses as well. She likened this to us as women. When we take the time to really become filled, we spill out onto those around us, and they are filled as well. Now, she continues, now this concept isn't new to me, but I hadn't ever seen this particular demonstration before. Although I've probably just been living under a rock and it's not all that novel to others. The visual really struck me and helped me to more fully grasp the importance of taking the time to really warm my own heart. And then today, as I was thinking about it again, I realized that I am always being filled with something, and that something is always spilling out onto those around me. Sometimes what is filling me isn't something that I want to be filled with, like anxiety, stress, frustration, irritation, fear, etc. But like it or not, if that is what I am allowing myself to be filled with, I love that there's a reminder there of our choice. If that is what I am allowing myself to be filled with, that is what I spill out onto those around me. I had a moment today when I was starting to fill my cup. Oh, excuse me. I apologize. I had a moment today when I was starting to feel my own cup filling up with a negative emotion. Because this visual of the cups was fresh in my mind, I made a conscious choice to go to be filled with something good and heartwarming instead. I decided to stop ruminating about my negative thoughts and instead, she says, pull out the Stories of Paintings book from the Story Hour series. I sat down with my 2 girls and we looked at a few of the paintings and read the little stories that go along with them. It really only took a few minutes, but I felt my heart being filled with beauty and joy instead of the negative feelings I had been experiencing before. I decided that I wanted to capture this image for myself as a reminder of making sure that I am taking the time to be filled with good and beautiful things so that I can spill that out onto the people around me. So I took a photo of water being poured into cups and spilling out onto all of them as it overflowed from the top cup. I decided to use the little teacups that we use for our poetry tea times because they are special to my children and me. The top cup represents me, and the bottom 5 represent my children. Just thought I'd share this little experience in case it helps anyone like it has me. Anyway, I loved it. I thought that was so sweet, and I'll see if I can show this little close up kind of the picture that she took. Oh, sorry. But of the top cup, and then she used a pitcher and filled that up until it was overflowing and filled into all the other cups. And Melanie, I know you saw that because I saw your name on that. But I thought it was a lovely little analogy, and the visual was so nice too, because that helps us, gives us another way of layering that onto our hearts. So I'm curious to know if you have thoughts about that post or about the visual there. So I'd love to hear from any of you that want to share about that. And I'm just looking for her picture in a better format so that it's easier for you to see. Okay, Jennifer Sterling, go ahead.
I know that anytime the full moon comes around, it's kind of brings up a lot of emotions for everybody, especially like yesterday for my son, who was having just a terrible time, which is not typical for him, and just really irrational. But just realizing that you can't fill up something that's already full with negative emotion, and you really do have to let it out and acknowledge it, and release that before you can start filling it up with something else.
That's a good, important point. I hadn't thought about that. That's great. Yeah, Lindsay.
I like that better, because I was thinking my kids are like somehow deflecting the water I'm trying to flow out. Like, I feel like I have things that I want to share, and they just are so quick to be like so negative. But I like that, Jennifer. They're probably full of something else, and they're not able to take it in, and it's hard. I've been thinking, why, like, sometimes they're just so negative about everything, no matter what we try to do. But anyway, but then
aren't we the same way too? You know, sometimes I think, heaven's trying to pour goodness out, and we're just like, or, I just maybe feeling negative or something, and we're not receiving it. So maybe that's kind of the same thing. Do you think?
Yeah. But then, then it makes me, I had lots of thoughts this morning when I saw what we were going to talk about. Like, yeah, what am I like overflowing with more stress? And I think it's something good, when really it's not. They're just getting my stress, and then they're full of that. I don't know. We really need to be conscious and intentional about what we fill our cups with.
Yeah, these are good things to think about. I'm really curious to hear. I'm going to give you a heads up, Emily, but I would love to know your thoughts on this subject. You don't have to share right now. It could be later, or it could be right now, but I would love to hear some of your thoughts, because you, like me, are further along on this journey of raising our children. So we have maybe a little bit different perspective. So I don't know, but it's interesting to think about this idea. I found the picture, so just so we can see. And for Jen and Melissa, who just joined us, we're talking about this photo that came up in the Well-Educated Heart Facebook group of this visual of a cup. The top cup represents the mother's cup, And she poured water into the top cup until it was overflowing and spilled into the cups below, which represent her children, but they can also represent any of the people around us in our lives. So I thought it was an interesting visual and something that would be worth talking about a little bit this morning.
I have that.
Yeah, Melanie.
So as you guys were talking about, what if their cup is already full of something? If you were to imagine a cup of water that has like red dye in it, so it's all colored, and then you pour clear water over it, even though it's already full, some of that clear water is going to get in and it's going to get diluted, right? And some extra of both colors will kind of spill out. So even if they're full of something not the most desirable, short of pouring out their cup and starting fresh, whatever efforts we do put in, some of it will trickle in as well.
I love that, Melanie, because we've watched that happen. We see it. It'll go from using the illustration you used, from a dark red filling that cup to lighter and lighter and lighter red until then it's pink, and then it's just faintly pink, and then it's clear again. And I love that idea, because I think that feels sort of like what Heavenly Father does with me. It just continues to pour out that love until finally I'm ready to receive it. So I do think that can happen with the people around us. In fact, I'm reading a beautiful story right now that is an old story for me, but it's fun to go over it again. And you might think it, I don't know if any of you have read it or seen the movie. I'd be curious to know, but it's called The Enchanted April, and it's about 4 women who go on a trip together to an Italian villa for the month of April, and their experiences. And the one woman there is so open and so ready to receive goodness, and kind of helps the others to see how they might receive it. It's just so interesting to see how these women change over the course of just this 1 month's time, and the things that happen to their hearts as they have these opportunities to maybe embrace something different. Anyway, so as you were talking about that, Melanie, that popped into my head. I love that we have an opportunity to receive things if we choose to do that, if we put us in an atmosphere where there's a lot of positivity and beauty and growth. Anyway, I think, Emily, you were going to share something.
I love that thought about, anyway, all the thoughts. I don't need to say anything, Lori. You said I should think of something, but the only thing I keep thinking of is that I'm reading the Understood Betsy, which was one of my favorite books. And a Mothers of Influence group here local to me is reading it. And so I thought I'll read it again. And I've been dragging my feet about reading it because there's so many books to read. How can I read it again? But I started this morning, and I have been so inspired. But what has been standing out to me that kind of goes with this pouring in to others is 2 things. First of all, we have to let those people that we're pouring into receive it at their own rate, in their own way. In the story, Betsy, as she goes to the farm to live with family there, it's such a new environment for her, but they just slowly let her, give her space to change. I think you've said before, Lori, that Brooke Snow talks about this, giving yourself space and giving others space, but they just give Betsy the space she needs to learn and grow and understand this new environment at her own pace. And I think for me as a parent, that has been hard, to let my children take the pace that they need. And I'm sure they have frustrations with me not understanding things as quickly as they would like as well. And then the other thought I had as Melanie was talking about the red colored water is that as that clear water gets poured in and it dilutes the red is being moved out, but it takes a lot to move it out and make it clear again. And I've been studying and thinking about things in my life that I need to remove so that I have room for the good things that I want to add in. It's like a room, you can only put so much in it, and then you got to start taking stuff out so you can put something new in. And so I've been trying to figure out what to take out. And when this conversation was happening, I thought that whatever's filling me is also going to those around me. I have to be so careful that whether it's a negative emotion or a bad habit, or, you know, that red that I want to get out, I need to be careful where that spills. And maybe that removing myself, spilling it out, and then coming back. If that, anyway, that image has been coming to my mind, and I'm just now getting that image, so it's not fully processed, but I wanted to share it with you just to think about where that removing process is happening and who it affects.
That's really good. And that is something that requires some thinking about. Some of you are a lot faster thinkers than me. You guys bring up these things and it takes me days or weeks, and I'll think, oh, you know, a long time after these conversations, I'll have a thought about it. But I love that. Thank you, Emily. This is so good. Lindsay, okay. Go ahead and share, sweetie.
Can you give me a really brief?
Oh,
what you guys-
yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Well, actually, I'll let somebody else. Lindsay, can you give her a summary and then share what you shared about your husband?
Oh, a summary of what we're talking about. Is that what you needed to try? We're talking about a post that was put up on the Well Educated Heart Facebook page of a mom who was teaching us a lesson she had learned on Sunday about the mom's cup being on the top, pouring out into her kids. And if it's empty, there's the picture Lori has. If it just pours into the cups and then it's empty, and there's nothing else to give. But if a pitcher flows from the top, then what's filling the mother's cup flows down into the children's cups. So those 5 cups beneath the top one are the children, and the top one is the mother. So we're kind of talking about being careful about what we fill our cups with, because it's going to flow over into our children, whether that's anxiety or joy or whatever the things that we're putting in our own cups. And then I love, like what Emily was just talking about, we need to be careful if we're pouring, you know, if we get a little bit of red, because Melanie gave the analogy, if our children's cups are kind of full of something else and they're not accepting what's flowing down from us, it will dilute eventually, like this, like imagine like red in their cups. The clear water coming from our cup will dilute their red little by little. And like Emily said, it may be at a rate that's different than what we would want. And we need to be careful about where we pour out the red from our cups. If we're getting rid of the bad and trying to make room for the good, where is that bad going? And I just shared in the comments, mine tends to go into my husband's cup. I'm like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe the day I had, and this happened, and this, that. And I tell myself, nope, don't tell him. Just pretend that it was a wonderful day and tell him all the good stuff. And then I can't help it. Like it's all stored up in me, and I just spill it all over him. And then he gets all frustrated that the kids are, you know, causing me to feel these feelings, and they're not, you know, doing what he thinks they should be doing. And anyway, so that's why I was just thinking, I know I'm spilling all my red stuff onto my husband's cup, but I need to be careful about where that goes and just pour it out somewhere else and through prayer and give it to the Lord. I know he can handle that. He's got enough to like, not even, that won't even bother him. So I feel like I need to give, you know, not give it to somebody who shouldn't have to handle that. But anyway, that's a little recap of what we're talking about, and then my thoughts.
I love it. I love that. And I'm curious to know what Jennifer would say too, because Jennifer brought up initially that idea of sometimes those cups are full and not ready to receive. I love how where that discussion went too. But Jennifer, I'm curious to know what other thoughts you've had. And then just by the way, Shelly just joined us and she's the author of that post. So Shelly, it's really nice to have you here with us this morning too. We're really having a very lively and really positive discussion about this so far. So go ahead, Jennifer.
I think that when when I'm like that, I get a little crazy. Like I'm not rational. I'm not, and it's not necessarily helping to just be pouring it out into my husband, because I do that too. And I went to a relationship kind of clinic one time, and their suggestion, and I thought it was really good, and you could do this through prayer too. And I'll like vocalize all the time, be like, can you please, Lord, remove this, remove this, remove this, remove this. Like literally, can you remove this anger? Can you remove my mom's, comments? Can you remove all of these things that I'm struggling with and just take them? Or you can write it down and then tear it up. But taking that extra time to get rid of all the irrational crap, and then you can be in a place where you're just kind of dealing with the residuals, and you can be honest and open with a spouse without just puking all over them.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I think that we often miss out on the real blessing of that tool, of being able to go to the Lord, and in prayer, or just in a conversation in our heads, like what you were saying, or out loud, Jennifer, but just saying, okay, I need some help here. Can you please help me? And get that out, give that burden to him first. And then whatever residuals are left, you can then take that to your spouse or your friend or whoever it is in your life that's your.
And I feel like with my kids, sometimes it's just like, I can't be the person to talk to them because I'm too emotional about the subject, or it's just going like bing, 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 like between us. And it's just like mirroring and going crazy and not. So finding an outside source to talk to the child, like my mother, one time I had to ask her can you just talk to him for an hour? Because I know I can't talk about this subject without losing my mind. It was about his dad, something his dad had done, and he wanted to talk about it. And I was just like, I can't do it. Like I'll say things I will regret.
And how wise is that for you to know that and then bring in another person for that?
Or sometimes a counselor or another family friend that they trust.
Right. And I was this is just an aside, and that's not available for everybody, but if you have this option and can encourage it in your home, there is such a benefit and blessing that comes from fathers' interviews. I just cannot share that enough with moms who have that opportunity, to build your husband up as patriarch of your home and father of that family, because they have such an incredible opportunity to be able to sit down on a regular basis. Ours, we did on Fast Sunday, so that my husband was fasting and he was, his heart was prepared to receive them. But different families do it different ways. You do it however it works for you. But to be able to have that conversation with those children separate from mom, ours was separate from me, so that they had this opportunity to talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. And it was always free space. But because he was prepared and had the Spirit with them, they have had so many wonderful, rich discussions over the years, very powerful. And there's been some very insightful, realizations that have come to him, things that have helped us as parents, things that have helped the kids to be able to see. And then just that relationship has been pretty incredible. So that is, I think, one way that's sort of built into the regular family unit that can be utilized in that situation. But again, being able to know and be aware of other outside sources or resources that you can use is also so good. I love this. So other thoughts? What else has come into your heads? Or Shari, have you had some thoughts as you've now been introduced to our subject and listened a little bit to some of the comments? I just love how this is moved.
I think my confidence waxes and wanes, and I keep asking, Lord, am I really an influence that's working? I'm trying to do my best to read literature, to lift. I've been reading about math this month in the Mother's University, and it's challenging. But I went back to my patriarchal blessing, and that was reassuring about things. But I guess what I'm going through personally is I have all these grand visions of my well-educated heart home, and what I want it to be.
Yeah.
And my children don't have that same passion. So I feel like I have to sneak it in and maybe not reveal to them, hey, this is
Oh, yeah.
great. And I have to kind of bring them in without them knowing it. I'm just thinking out loud. But the second thing is, as I'm expanding how I want to do this and feeling excited about it, in the back of my mind for like 2 months now, I've had this thought that one of my daughters might need to go to our local charter school. I finally confessed it to my husband this morning. That's how much I've been resisting it for months. I'm like, I said, okay, it's there. I'm not going to keep denying it. Will you please pray about it? We need to pray about it and see what to do. So my point is, we try to make everything work so beautifully, but in the end, the Lord is in charge. And who knows where that journey goes. When I got my answer to homeschool my kids, which was 2 years ago, it was like so clear, and I did it, and it's been awesome. But I kind of wish I could get the full, picture. So how many years are we talking? So
Yeah.
can we go 10 years out? Give me the whole landscape, please. But it just keeps changing. Yeah.
Yeah. And at least in my life, I never get the whole picture. I get, like the next half a day or something. And I'm just supposed to run with that. So I think that's how he likes to work. Yeah, I knew you'd have stuff to say about this, Lindsay.
I just thought it was funny. It reminded me of a conversation I had with a mom at the park this week, and she's just, she's just starting out with her homeschool journey. She's supposed to homeschool in the fall, and so she's like, okay. I'm like, I know nothing. Like, she just is just starting out. So all she knows is she's supposed to do it. So she asked me that question you get when you're a homeschool mom, like, what does your day look like? I was like, well, it looks different every day, and it looks different depending on the season. It looks different depending on what we have going on. Like, it's just always changing. And we ultimately got to the answer that, I mean, it's like the ultimate test in following the Spirit and knowing what he wants for you. Like that, he's not going to tell you the whole map, because you're supposed to listen to the directions all along the way. Like, that's the whole point. And so I just told her it's all about listening and moving forward with whatever you feel like is good. And it is kind of like a walk in the dark sometimes. Like, you just like, okay, which way do I go now? I don't know. So I don't know if that gave her any confidence at all going forward, but I feel that all the time. Like, this is just little by little, line upon line, like we're learning along the way what it is we're supposed to do. And it changes because we reroute if things, based on where we go, it just is always changing.
I like the rerouting concept. That's interesting. If you think about GPS thing, reroute.
Yeah, there's an accident that way. Don't go that way now. I changed, go this way instead, or whatever. Like, it's just a constant.
Course correction.
Like,
I was thinking.
Course correction. Yeah.
I was talking with my daughter who just graduated. She's about to go to college, about what I majored in when I went to college and why. And I was thinking about that because I kind of defaulted to whatever my family was good at. And that's what I majored in. And I told her, you know what I actually majored in college? It was my relationship with the Lord, because that was my focus. When I left home, I was like, yeah, I'm on my own. And I really took that seriously. But homeschooling is kind of like that too. It's like, what's my occupation? Well, it's co-teaching.
Right. Yes. And I wish that's the thing that I wish I could get into moms' hearts more than anything else. It doesn't matter right now what your day looks like, because your day is not going to look like a successful day. Whatever you have imagined and called successful homeschooling day, to us, that is that our children are just saying, oh, thank you, Mother, for providing me with this beautiful and wonderful, uplifting, education today. I mean, it's just, it doesn't look like that in most of the moments. But when you're in my position and you're looking back at all of it, you just see those tiny moments that were so beautiful and so impactful. And then you see the human beings where they are now and who they've become because of those tiny, impactful, beautiful moments. And you feel gratitude, and you are aware that it really is the tiny moments, the little small and simple things here and there that he makes, he who you are co-partnering with, co-teaching with, that he makes enough, and he magnifies and makes, this incredible tiny little thing you did become this incredible, wonderful thing that impacts them in the way that they need it to be. And just inserting, and each one of our children, they have their agency. So in spite of all the good that we do and all of the wonderful things where Heavenly Father fills in, they still get to choose. They still get to decide on their own. And you have to just hang on to the fact that you have been striving every day, failing, repenting, starting again, failing, repenting, starting again. But really, in your heart, you know that you are striving to do what you need to be doing. I wish I could give that to moms, because that's so hard when you're right here where most of you are. Sorry.
No, Lori keeps making me cry as we talking. My oldest is only 13, but like looking at, like when I see little babies, like I can't right now. Like as soon as I see a little baby, I just lose it, because like a toddler wandering around, exploring, like Lori's little granddaughter, like jumping in puddles. And I'm like, that was my daughter like yesterday. So it's just so hard to realize how fast time's going. But I had a thought when Shari was talking about homeschooling being like, and like we've talked about, like you have to be able to hear the Spirit. I just had the thought pop in my head, maybe that's why so many mothers are being called to homeschool right now. Because what a powerful like vehicle for learning how to hear the Spirit. Like you suddenly you've taken on this responsibility of teaching these little people, these little children of God, and like there's just floods of mothers being called to homeschool right now. So I just think maybe that's God's way of saying, here, you need to learn how to listen to me. So I don't know, just a thought I had.
I like that. I like that. And regardless of what, I mean, because I know some of you are a combination of homeschooling and public schooling. And so you still, I mean, that's a part of your everyday, is that learning how to listen. Lindsay and Melissa both, I know.
Yeah. When you said that, I thought you're right. It's just being a mother. I mean, it's not necessarily a homeschool mom, but just being a mother, you're having to partner with the Spirit.
Yeah. Thanks. I agree. Melissa.
Going back a little bit to the cup thing.
Yeah, please.
Professor that used an analogy once, and I'm changing what he used it for this, but when I saw the post, it reminded me of the analogy of the dryer, where basically we have to do jobs. It's not like all day, every day can be like songs and rainbows and wonderful stories, right? Like there's going to be the time when your pipe bursts and you're dealing with flooding, or you burn dinner, or whatever is going on that day, illness or whatever. And life just goes on. It's not constantly like this pure water coming from a pitcher above you, as much as we'd like it to be. But laundry never stops. You always have to do laundry no matter what's going on. And our kids are like the lint filters, whatever we put in the laundry, whatever we're dealing with that we have to deal with that day, they get the remnants of that. And sometimes it's sparkles and rainbows. And some days it's, towels, utilitarian fluff and whatnot, but they catch all that stuff regardless of if it's good or bad. And hopefully the majority of it is, good and not microplastics, whatever, but
No, that's so good. And I love that, Melissa. Thanks for sharing that. And I loved that that in Shelley's post, and Shelley, I don't know if you have availability to share today. You can let me know, by just unmuting when you can, or, something just to say that you can share. Hey, there we go. I would love for you to share with the ladies here, just kind of as you continue to think about this. And obviously you can tell that post really hit home with a lot of moms, because there were so many responses to that post. And so I'd love for you to talk more about it. I mean, whichever direction you want to go.
Yeah, so one thing that I thought that has come to me a lot since I posted that was really focusing on the picture. And actually, when I took that picture the other night, it was storming, and so the lighting wasn't very good. And I just got a quick picture, and the picture is like cut off at the top, and it really bugged me. But I was like, whatever, it's the best picture I got. I'm just gonna use it.
No.
But it's because it didn't have the focus as much in the picture as I wanted it to. And in my mind, before I even took the picture, I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could like have two pictures pouring in on opposite sides, and one was like pouring in pure water and the other one's like gross water, to show, that you're being filled with either thing.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. So anyways, but I've been thinking a lot about how us as moms, as teachers, I think the more I do Well-Educated Heart, the less I think of myself as a teacher, and I think of myself just as a mentor, and just as a guide, and just as a fellow student. And that really, I mean, ideally we want to be being filled by God, and as He fills us, we're just the upper cup. Like, we're not the source of what is filling our children. He teaches us, and then we just get to be the one that mentors through our overflow, if that makes sense. So that's something I've been thinking about more lately. But yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I love that. But I thought that in your pic, I thought, well, how is a busy mom going to be able to do this picture and include the picture? Because you've got to have another set of hands, right? But I thought about that when I saw the picture. I thought, okay, but your picture leaves that open for us to imagine and put in, what does our picture look like? What are we using? And are we allowing Him to be the picture that fills us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it can be all of these, it can be coming from any one of these wonderful sources or resources, however you want to look at it. But are we using the Spirit to kind of help us determine what we need in that moment that would be the best thing to fill us for whatever it is that He knows we need next? How is it that He's going to use us? What is it that's going to be the next task at hand? And what do we need to be filled with? He knows that. The Spirit knows that and can tell us. Oh, Shelley, I loved it. I've loved so much being able to talk about this. It's so good.
Thanks. It just came to me. I can't claim any credit, but
no, I know. Isn't that wonderful though, that we receive these kinds of lessons? And I love that you were wise enough to take that and share your thoughts about it. And you did a beautiful job of that too. I love that. I know Emily wants to share something, so I'm going to go to Emily for a minute. Thank you, Shelley.
Shelley, I like the picture. Okay, so the little bit of photography, I know I can see how you want the picture all in there, and it would be cool. But when I think about the imagery of it, I love it, because we don't always see everything that the Lord has for us, like we were talking about. And so it keeps that mystery, and that we don't really know everything that's coming and all that He has for us. So I like it like that.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's good. It helps us think more about that. That's a lot to really think about, you know? And it's also, I can see already that there are opportunities for us, for Satan to get in and go, how can I mess with their heads now that they have this new imagery, you know? How can I make them feel like it's their fault? Like they, you know, how can I make them feel guilty for ever having something less than the perfect thing flow into their cup, you know? So watch for that, because he loves to do that. Emily.
You're right, Lori, he does. And what I was thinking is that we need to remember that no matter the size of our child, there's more than one picture or even two pictures that are pouring in their vicinity that they might catch something from. And it's not always in our complete control as much as we want it. And that is part of the plan, that I believe our Heavenly Father has given us that choice. And so we're going to be around lots of influences, and how blessed we are that we have the atonement that can make that clear again, but to not sweat it so much because there's that picture we can't see all of that is pouring in.
Yeah, I love that.
Can I say something?
Please.
So as a family, we've been reading out of the Psalms in the last few months. It's a very big book. And it's really neat how much praise there are in the Psalms. It's just praise, 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 praise. And I think, holy cow, you know, we don't maybe praise quite as much as we should. And also, I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be fallen. Adam fell, what it means to be a human being that has fallen. And I think misunderstanding it has caused me a lot of trouble, because no matter what we do, sin will always be lurking about, right? We will always fall short on some level. We will always make mistakes. Things won't go. You know, you'd be 50% great, 50% really stink half the time. And that's because we're human and we're fallen. But I think the misunderstanding for me was the atonement doesn't just remove sin. That's not what we're after. What Christ does is removes the pain of the sin that's all around us. It doesn't affect us. I've experienced that personally when I have my eyes in the right direction. But about going back to the picture, I think if we're aware of and focused of the Lord's tender mercies and his long suffering, and I mean, he is worthy of praise, a lot of it. He is so amazing and so giving in every way. And that's the top of the picture, is him. It doesn't start with us. That's the top. So I have to constantly remind myself to spend time with the Lord. I think I need to do that more. Take more time, just so that I have praise on my heart. That helps everything to go better if I have a praise on my heart.
Yeah, I love that. And we're reminded, you know, that we should have gratitude, and that should be a big part of, or at least a part of, all of our days. And I think you're right, Shari. I know it's Shari. I think you're right. I'm trying to write notes about what you were saying at the same time as I'm trying to talk. That doesn't work. But keeping that in the forefront of our minds, that gratitude. And I think, oh my goodness, our dear, the other Christian moms that we know in our lives, that they are such a blessing to us if we will spend time with them and talk with them, because they talk so much more about the joy of living this life, and they praise God all the time, and they're so grateful for this gift of forgiveness, and that we can just move forward. And they seem to move forward a little better than we do. We tend to kind of hang on to those things rather than letting go. letting go and moving on. And I think that's important. Just praising him, being grateful for him, keeping that in the forefront of our minds as we move forward. And then just that idea of daily repentance, and repentance meaning change, not anything bad, not anything, not this guilt ridden thing, but this wonderful, beautiful opportunity to move forward. And like you said, Shari, with the natural man, we or however how you said it, was it you that said it? You were just saying that, right? Oh man. But this journey is so difficult because we are mortal and because we struggle, but so much of the difficulty is here. If we would just realize that he is eager to forgive us, and he wants to do that, and he loves us, he's grateful, like that phrase, the Lord loves effort. So just keep striving, just keep moving forward, keep repenting, and just do it over. I think the measure of our success is going to be, did we continue to turn to him? Not did we ever get it, because we're not going to, but did we continually did we keep turning back, returning to him? Did we come unto him? Did we come follow him? Is that what we're striving to do every day? Then I think that is success, because we're never going to figure it out while we're here. So I don't know, I kind of accepting that, which is something that you begin to do as you get older. I say this, but I think a lot, in large part, to the fact that you're just too tired. And you start to kind of let go more and just give things to him and say, okay, I don't have the energy to keep feeling so horrible about all of this. Can you just help me? I'm just going to give all of this to you. Can you just tell me what you need me to do today? And it doesn't matter what I want anymore. I just want to do what you want me to do. You get to that point and things get a little bit better, a lot better, because you're willing to just, all right, what is it? What's my trial now? All right, how can I get through this? And depending on the trial, depending on where you are in your life, how do I get through this day? How do I get through this hour? How do I get through this next 5 minutes? And if we're doing it with him, then we're doing it right. Doesn't matter what it looks like. It just matters that we're striving and that we're trying to stay close to him. Anyway. Oh, well, moms, friends, this has been lovely again. And Shelley, thank you so very much for sharing your thoughts and that beautiful analogy and all of the positives and negatives that you saw in that, and the ways that we have choices and that we can move forward. Thank you all for all your beautiful contributions to this and the different ways of seeing this analogy. I think it's something that we'll probably keep on our hearts for a while as we move forward. Would any one of you like to do the little kind of summary wrap up of today's meeting? I would love for that to happen. Anybody that just kind of feels like, yeah, I kind of want an opportunity to review that in my head before we leave. Don't all jump up at once.
I don't really have much more to add or to recap again, but just that this brought me a lot of hope. I started out the morning and the conversation just feeling a little bit hopeless, like I feel like I'm doing everything I can, and this just doesn't seem to be doing anything. Like I just kind of felt negative this morning, but just this whole conversation, and like you said, as long as we keep coming back to the Lord and we keep doing our best, then that's how we measure our successes as mothers. So this whole hour has given me so much more hope. I feel a lot better than I did an hour ago.
Good. That's why we get together, isn't it? So that we can feed each other's souls and we can remind each other of the goodness that's here. Shari.
Can I ask a question post recording?
Yes.
Can you edit?
Yep. Absolutely. Okay. We always stick around just a little bit, just in case. So we'll do that.
Well, it's a question for for my sister who just reached out to me. It's not a homeschool question,
Yeah.
but
no worries.
she just sent me kind of a chapter text.
Oh,
really
okay, sure. Yeah, we'll do it
a long
right
one.
after.
And
Yeah.
she says that she's
Do
really low
you
right.
want to wait till the after or no?
Oh, or do you just stop the recording or how do you do that?
I will in just a moment, and we'll just continue talking
Oh, okay.
as soon as we do that. So no worries, no worries. And for anybody that is here or anyone that is watching, anytime if you're on this call on a Friday and you have things you want to say off recording, then just hang on, just stick around afterwards because Lindsay and I usually always stay for a little bit afterwards in case there are some conversations that want to continue. So we will do that. So ladies, thank you again for being here. This was a really wonderful discussion. Shelley, thanks. And I hope we get to see you again too. Have an amazing Friday, a lovely weekend. Enjoy your Father's Day celebrations. And then we will get together again next Friday. So have a lovely weekend. Okay, now, do you want me to pause the recording or might this be a conversation that would be helpful in Mothers of Influence or something like that, Shari?
Well, sure. It's not super personal,
Okay,
but
your
she's
choice.
just really struggling because she feels like she's the kind of personality that starts things and doesn't finish them. I don't know if anyone else relates to this or not. Like she says, I've got all these, she wants, like, I've painted all these rooms and I had all these plans and I start something but don't finish it. I go part way and then I don't finish it. And those kinds of habits are really hard if you're trying to teach your kiddos at home. Does anyone relate to that? And she was saying, how do I get through this? Do I just tell myself I will not start anything new till I finish this other thing? Or what do you do, you know? I'm a huge homemaking housekeeping advocate because I grew up in an absolutely chaotic, filthy home. So even as a young girl, I was just telling myself I will have a clean home because I cannot stand chaos. And I relate everything to that. So with housekeeping, you finish something. You get up in the morning, you finish your sleep by making your bed. You know, you keep finishing things. If you leave things undone and say, oh, I'll do it later, that's a recipe for a total disaster in your house, you know. So, but how does that, so I'm a finisher in that way, but yeah, anyone relate to what she's talking about? And what would you say?
I saw heads nodding, so I'm going to go to Melanie. I know you were nodding. Lindsay, you go ahead first and then Melanie.
Yeah, I can relate to you as far as house stuff goes. I don't start something until I'm already ready to finish it. And so that way I know it gets done because I like my house to feel not so chaotic. But I understand where she's coming from as far as like, oh, we're going to do this really cool like program like in our home over the summer where we do, you know, we earn prizes and every day we do something cool. And then like 2 days in, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore. So my kids are always making fun of me because I'm like, all right, guys, I have this idea. And then they're like, Mom, we're not going to do it. I don't know. So it depends on, yeah, like you said, what type of thing it is that she's having a hard time completing.
Mm-hmm.
And does it matter? Like in our home, I feel like it does. Yeah. But
I think it could be tied to perfectionism. And that's what keeps the light bulb that keeps going off in my mind. It's like you go toward the thing and then you realize, it's not working like I thought. I can't do it perfectly. So I must need to scrap it. That's one thought I'm having. Anybody else?
Yeah, that's why I usually stop doing things. As soon as I feel like this isn't working, like I give up. I'm like, never mind, I'm not going to do it. So it is a perfectionism thing because I've always struggled with that. And that's why I tend to not start things in my house because I'm afraid I'm not going to do it perfectly. So then I just don't start. Yeah,
it could be. I've adopted an interesting way of. Shelley, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think sometimes for me, it's part of the line upon line process that like I start a lot of books
and I don't necessarily finish them right away. Like one book will lead me to another book, and then that may lead me to another book, and it may lead me to another book. And then, 3 years later, I end up picking up one of the other books that I didn't finish, but maybe I'll start where my bookmark is. And then I end up seeing, oh, wait, that's exactly what I needed right now in my life. If I had read that 3 years ago, it wouldn't have really made sense to me. It wouldn't have been what I needed. And so I think sometimes I think we think that you have to be a finisher in everything, but sometimes it's not supposed to be that way in that moment in your life. You're supposed to be led from one thing to the next, and then to the next, and maybe then you circle back. And I have the same thing, Lindsay, I think. Yeah. As like, I'll start things with my kids, and then, I'll be like, oh wait, this isn't really working. We're going to like revamp, totally change it, or like tweak this in this direction. And I think it's just part of the learning process sometimes I'm just lazy and I'm just done with something, but most of the time I think it's part of just learning a little at a time.
I love that.
I love that perspective. I think that's what it comes down to. It's all about perspective. Are we viewing our inability to finish something as a failure, or as like it's just not the right timing? I love that, Shelley.
Have a lovely weekend.